The siblings, Jack and Emily Thompson, could hardly wait for the vacation they had been planning for months. They had decided to take a road trip along Route 66, the legendary highway that crossed the United States from east to west. For them, the journey was more than just a simple trip. It was an opportunity to strengthen family bonds and create unforgettable memories. Jack, at 35, was a renowned photographer, while Emily, at 32, was a talented writer. Both were excited about the possibilities for inspiration that Route 66 offered. They left Chicago on a sunny July morning, with Jack's old Ford Mustang loaded with supplies and equipment. The road, initially lively and full of life, began to reveal its true nature as they moved westward. Small ghost towns, abandoned hotels, and forgotten gas stations formed a picturesque and unsettling scenery. After 2 days of travel, they decided to spend the night at a small roadside motel near a town called Marlow. The motel seemed to have been pulled straight out of a 1950s movie, with its flickering neon facade and a deserted reception. They were greeted by an elderly gentleman with a tired appearance, who handed them the keys to room number 7. "If you need anything, I'll be at the reception," he said with a weak smile. The room was simple, but clean. The double bed in the center of the room was flanked by bedside tables with fabric shade lamps. A painting of a desert landscape hung crookedly on the wall. Jack and Emily were exhausted, so they decided to rest before exploring the town. That night, Jack woke up abruptly with a feeling of discomfort. He looked at the clock. It was 2:33 a.m. As he turned to see Emily, he noticed that she was also awake, with wide eyes and an expression of terror. "Did you feel that too?" she whispered. "Yes, as if someone was here," he replied, looking around the room. Suddenly, a strange noise came from outside, a dragging and rhythmic sound, like heavy footsteps. Jack cautiously got up and peeked through the window. He didn't see anything immediately, but he felt a strange and oppressive presence. "I think we should leave," he said, his voice tense. Emily quickly agreed. In minutes, they were dressed and ready to leave. When they opened the room door, the hallway was plunged into deep darkness, broken only by the weak light from the distant reception. As they approached the reception, the heavy footsteps started again, this time closer. "Let's go, Jack," Emily whispered, squeezing her brother's arm. They reached the reception only to find the old receptionist, now with a blank expression and glazed eyes. Before they could speak, he muttered, "You shouldn't have come." Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out. Jack held Emily's hand, and they started running towards the car. The parking lot was deserted and shrouded in a dense fog. They managed to get into the car, and Jack started it, but the engine didn't respond. The fog seemed to approach, surrounding the vehicle. Desperate, Jack tried again, and this time the engine roared to life. Without wasting time, they sped down the deserted road, with the sound of heavy footsteps still echoing in their minds. They drove for hours without stopping, until the sun began to rise on the horizon, dissipating the fog and the terror of the previous night. They finally stopped at a service station to refuel and try to understand what had happened. The attendant, a middle-aged man with a curious look, asked where they came from. "We spent the night at a motel near Marlow, but something strange happened there," Emily said. The attendant frowned. "Marlow? There's been nothing there for decades. That town was abandoned in the 60s. Jack and Emily exchanged incredulous looks. They were sure they had spent the night at a motel, but now everything seemed like a hazy nightmare. "Maybe we just need some rest," Jack suggested, trying to calm himself and his sister. They continued the trip, but the feeling of being watched didn't leave them. They decided to take a break at a roadside diner. While eating, they noticed a mural on the wall with old photos of Route 66. One of the photos caught Emily's attention. It was a faded image of a motel with a neon sign. "Jack, look at this," she said, pointing to the photo. Jack approached and turned pale as he recognized the motel where they had spent the night. The most disturbing detail was the date in the photo caption, 1956. The elderly receptionist was in the photo, but younger, next to a permanently closed sign. "This doesn't make sense," Jack said, feeling a chill run down his spine. "I think we spent the night in a place that shouldn't exist anymore," Emily whispered, frightened. They decided not to talk about it anymore and continued their journey. But every night, in their dreams, they returned to the Marlowe Motel, hearing the heavy footsteps and feeling the oppressive presence. The road, once a promise of freedom and adventure, was now a dark path full of unfathomable mysteries. Jack and Emily continued their journey along Route 66, but they could never shake the feeling that they were being followed. Perhaps the road had more secrets than they could imagine, and the nightmare on the road would be just the first of many supernatural encounters on their journey through the dark heart of America. Samantha Walsh gripped the steering wheel of her vintage Mustang, her knuckles white as she navigated the twisting mountain road. The car had belonged to her grandfather, and driving it always filled her with a bittersweet mixture of nostalgia and grief. But tonight, something felt different. As a neuroscientist specializing in memory disorders, Samantha was en route to a remote research facility nestled in the mountains. She'd been summoned to consult on a case that the cryptic email had described only as unprecedented memory anomalies. The night was moonless, and a light drizzle obscured her vision. The headlights of her car seemed to be swallowed by the darkness, barely illuminating a few feet of road ahead. As she rounded a particularly sharp bend, Samantha's heart leapt into her throat. A figure stood in the middle of the road, motionless. She slammed on the brakes, the Mustang's tires screeching on the wet asphalt. As the car skidded to a halt mere inches from the figure, Samantha's scientific mind struggled to process what she was seeing. The being before her was humanoid but wrong somehow, its proportions slightly off, its skin seeming to shimmer and shift in the glow of the headlights. Before she could react, the creature placed a hand on the hood of her car. Instantly, the engine died, and with it, every electrical system in the vehicle. Samantha found herself plunged into absolute darkness. Panic rising in her chest, she fumbled for her phone, but it too was dead. In the silence that followed, she heard something that made her blood run cold, a sound like whispered static coming from just outside her driver's side window. Slowly, terrified of what she might see, Samantha turned her head. The creature was there, its face, if it could be called a face, pressed against the glass. Where eyes should have been, there were only swirling vortexes of darkness. A voice spoke directly into her mind, bypassing her ears entirely. "Samantha Walsh," it said, the words feeling like ice in her brain. "We've been waiting for you." Samantha wanted to scream, to run, but found herself paralyzed. The creature's hand pressed against the window, and to her horror, it began to pass through the glass as if it were water. What are you?" Samantha managed to whisper. The being's response came not in words, but in a flood of images and sensations. Samantha saw flashes of other times, other places, ancient civilizations, futuristic cities, alien worlds, and through it all, she saw these creatures, always watching, always feeding. "We are the memory eaters," the voice in her mind explained. "We exist between the synapses of time, consuming the experiences of sentient beings across the multiverse." As it spoke, Samantha felt a strange sensation, as if parts of her mind were going numb. Memories began to slip away, her childhood, her years of study, even her own name. With a supreme effort of will, Samantha forced herself to focus on her scientific training. "Why?" she asked, fighting to hold on to her sense of self. "Why do you take memories?" The creature tilted its head, an unsettlingly human gesture. "Memories are the building blocks of reality," it explained. "By consuming them, we maintain the balance of the cosmos. Without us, the weight of accumulated experiences would cause universes to collapse." Samantha's mind raced, grappling with the implications. "But why me? Why now?" "You stand at a crossroads, Samantha Walsh. Your work on memory manipulation could unlock secrets that would upset the cosmic balance. We are here to ensure that does not happen." With dawning horror, Samantha realized the truth. "You're going to erase me," she whispered. The creature's form rippled, almost as if in sympathy. "Not erase. Rewrite. Your brilliance will be redirected, your discoveries altered. The world will remember a Samantha Walsh, but not the one you are now." Tears streamed down Samantha's face as she felt more of her memories slipping away. But with them came flashes of insight, glimpses of the vast, interconnected web of consciousness that spanned the multiverse. In that moment of cosmic awareness, Samantha made a choice. "Wait," she said, her voice stronger now. What if I could help you?" Find a way to balance memories without taking them completely? The memory eater paused, its swirling eyes seeming to peer into her very soul. You would sacrifice your research? Your life's work? Samantha nodded. To preserve the memories of others? Yes. There must be a way to store experiences without overloading the fabric of reality. Let me try to find it. For what felt like an eternity, the creature was silent. Then, slowly, it withdrew its hand from the car. Your proposal is intriguing. It has been eons since a being has offered cooperation rather than resistance. The oppressive mental presence lifted, and Samantha found she could move again. Her memories, while shaken, began to resettle. We will be watching, Samantha Walsh, the memory eater said. You have one solar cycle of your planet to prove the viability of your proposal. Do not disappoint us. With that, the creature shimmered and vanished. The car's systems suddenly roared back to life, headlights illuminating an empty road. Samantha sat there for several minutes, her mind reeling from the encounter. She had set out on this journey as a neuroscientist. She would continue it as something far more, a custodian of cosmic memory, tasked with finding a way to preserve the experiences of countless beings across the multiverse. As she put the car in drive and continued her journey, Samantha felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges she could scarcely imagine. But she was determined to succeed, not just for her own sake, but for the sake of every consciousness whose memories hung in the balance. The nightmare on the road had become a calling, and Samantha Walsh drove into the future, carrying with her the weight of infinite memories and the hope of preserving them all. Dr. Alex Patel drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, his eyes darting between the desolate highway ahead and the strange device on the passenger seat. As a theoretical physicist specializing in quantum mechanics, Alex was used to dealing with the bizarre, but nothing had prepared him for what he was about to encounter. The device, a prototype quantum entanglement communicator, was supposed to be a breakthrough in instantaneous communication across vast distances. Tonight, Alex was driving it to a secure government facility for official testing, but as the miles rolled by, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The night sky seemed unusually dark, with stars blinking in and out of existence in impossible patterns. His radio picked up nothing but static, occasionally broken by bursts of what sounded like conversations in unknown languages. Suddenly, his headlights illuminated a figure on the roadside, a man in a sharp suit, thumb out in the universal sign for hitchhiking. Despite his better judgment, Alex felt compelled to stop. As he pulled over, the man approached with an unnaturally smooth gait. "Thanks for stopping," he said, his voice oddly modulated. "I've been waiting for you, Dr. Patel." Alex's blood ran cold. He hadn't told anyone about this trip, and his name wasn't visible from outside the car. "Who are you?" he demanded. The man smiled, revealing teeth that seemed too perfect, too white. "I'm a traveler like yourself, though I journey through possibilities rather than mere physical space." Before Alex could respond, the man opened the car door and slid into the passenger seat, right through the quantum communicator as if it wasn't there. "Impossible," Alex whispered. "Improbable," the man corrected. "But in an infinite multiverse, even the most unlikely events must occur somewhere." He gestured to the road ahead. "Shall we continue your journey? I believe you'll find it most illuminating." In a daze, Alex put the car in drive. As they moved forward, the world outside began to shift. The desert landscape flickered, alternating between lush forests, gleaming futuristic cities, and alien vistas that defied description. "What you're seeing," the hitchhiker explained, "are glimpses of parallel realities. Your device there, quite a clever design by the way, has inadvertently turned your vehicle into a quantum probability drive. We're sliding between universes with each passing moment." Alex's scientific mind raced to process this information. But how? The communicator wasn't designed for anything like this. The hitchhiker chuckled. "Intent and result don't always align in quantum mechanics, as you well know. You wanted to connect distant points instantly. Instead, you've connected entire universes." As they drove, Alex saw versions of himself living out different lives. In one, he was a renowned concert pianist. In another, a hardened soldier in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. "Why show me this?" Alex asked, his voice trembling. Because, Dr. Patel, your work is about to change everything. The multiverse is vast but delicate. Your communicator, if activated as planned, would tear apart the fabric of reality itself. Alex's grip tightened on the steering wheel. How can I stop it? The hitchhiker's form flickered, becoming momentarily translucent. You can't, not in this reality, but perhaps in another. Suddenly, the car screeched to a halt. They were back on the original highway, but now multiple versions of Alex's car stretched ahead and behind, each containing a different iteration of himself. You must choose, the hitchhiker said. Each of these Alexes has made a slightly different decision in their work. One of them has found the key to safe quantum communication, but choosing means accepting that reality and letting go of your own. Alex's mind reeled at the implications. To save reality, he would have to sacrifice his own existence, merging with a version of himself who had made different choices. How do I know which one to choose? He asked. The hitchhiker smiled enigmatically. You don't. That's the beauty of quantum superposition. Until you observe, all possibilities exist simultaneously. Alex took a deep breath, understanding the profound choice before him. He stepped out of the car, approaching the line of alternate selves. Each one looked at him with a mix of recognition and uncertainty. As he moved down the line, he felt resonances with each alternate Alex, echoes of shared experiences and divergent paths. Finally, he stopped in front of one whose eyes held a spark of something different, understanding perhaps, or a wisdom born of narrowly avoided catastrophe. This one, Alex said, turning to the hitchhiker. The man nodded approvingly. A wise choice, or perhaps merely a fortunate one. In the end, is there really a difference? As Alex reached out to touch his alternate self, the world around him began to dissolve. He felt his consciousness expanding, merging with the other Alex, absorbing memories of a life not quite his own. In a flash, he was back in his car, alone on the highway. The quantum communicator sat on the passenger seat, but now Alex understood its true potential and its dangers. He knew what he had to do. This version of himself had discovered how to use quantum entanglement for communication without risking the fabric of the multiverse. But the knowledge came with a heavy burden. The understanding of what might have been, of lives unlived and apocalypses narrowly averted. As Alex drove toward the government facility, the weight of infinite possibilities pressed upon him. He was no longer just a physicist. He had become a guardian of reality itself. The hitchhiker's words echoed in his mind. In an infinite multiverse, even the most unlikely events must occur somewhere. Alex realized that his encounter on this lonely highway had been one such unlikely event, a cosmic course correction to prevent universal catastrophe. The road ahead stretched into darkness, but Alex Patel drove on, carrying with him the knowledge of 1,000 lifetimes and the responsibility of preserving the delicate balance of the multiverse. His nightmare on the road had transformed into an awakening, and though the burden was heavy, he was grateful for the chance to make a difference across all of reality. Dr. Lydia Chen adjusted her noise-canceling headphones as she guided her modified research van along the winding coastal highway. As a marine biologist specializing in cetacean communication, Lydia was en route to investigate reports of unusual whale songs detected off the Pacific Northwest coast. The van was crammed with state-of-the-art acoustic equipment designed to capture and analyze underwater sounds. Lydia had been tracking a particular sequence of vocalizations that defied classification, too complex for known whale species, yet unmistakably biological in origin. As night fell, a thick fog rolled in from the ocean, reducing visibility to mere feet. Lydia slowed the van, relying on the vehicle's advanced navigation system to keep her on the road. The headphones protected her from the monotonous drone of the engine, allowing her to focus on the data streaming across her dashboard monitors. Suddenly, a haunting melody pierced through her headphones. Lydia gasped, nearly swerving off the road. The sound was like nothing she had ever heard, a song of impossible beauty and complexity, seeming to shift between frequencies that should have been beyond human perception. Heart racing, Lydia pulled over and scrambled to record the phenomenon. As she worked, she realized the song was getting louder, clearer, as if its source was approaching the shore. Without warning, Lydia's van lost power. The monitors went dark, and her headphones fell silent. In the eerie stillness, she could hear the song clearly now, seeming to come from everywhere at once. Grabbing a handheld recorder, Lydia stepped out of the van. The fog swirled around her, thick and cold, carrying the salt scent of the sea. She could barely make out the guardrail separating the highway from the cliff edge. As she moved closer to the railing, the song intensified. It spoke of depths unimaginable, of ancient mysteries and long-forgotten truths. Lydia felt an overwhelming urge to get closer to its source. In a daze, she climbed over the guardrail. The logical part of her mind screamed warnings, but the song drowned out all reason. She began to descend the steep cliff face, drawn inexorably toward the crashing waves below. Just as Lydia was about to step into the churning surf, a hand grasped her arm. She turned, startled, to see an old man with weathered features and eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. "Don't listen to them, lass," he said, his voice gruff but kind. "They'll drag you down to the depths, just like they've done to so many others." The man's touch seemed to break the song's spell. Lydia blinked, suddenly aware of her precarious position on the rocks. What are they?" she asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. The old man sighed, looking out over the foggy sea. "They have many names. Sirens, some call them, but they're far older than any legend. They've been singing their song since before mankind learned to speak." "The song's always there," the man replied, "but it takes a special kind of ear to hear it. You've been listening to the ocean's voices, haven't you? Opened your mind to its language? Well, now you're hearing the parts of that language we were never meant to understand." Lydia's mind raced, connecting dots she'd never seen before. The unusual whale songs, the inexplicable data in her research, it all pointed to something far beyond her previous understanding of marine biology. "Come," the old man said, gently guiding her back toward the cliff path. "We need to get you away from the shore before their song takes hold again." As they climbed, Lydia bombarded the man with questions. She learned that he was a retired sailor named Callum, who had his own encounter with the sirens decades ago. He now patrolled this stretch of coast, watching for those who might fall under the song's influence. Back on the highway, Lydia found her van operational again. As she and Callum sat inside, the old sailor shared more of what he knew. Tales of ancient underwater civilizations, of creatures that defied scientific classification, of songs that could reshape reality itself. "Your work is important, Dr. Chen," Callum said, having learned of her research. "But it's also dangerous. The oceans hold secrets that could shatter our understanding of the world. Are you prepared for what you might discover?" Lydia thought long and hard before answering. The scientist in her craved knowledge longed to uncover the truth behind the siren's song, but she also recognized the wisdom in Callum's warning. "I can't unhear what I've heard," she said finally, "but I can be more careful, more prepared. Will you help me?" Callum nodded, a small smile crossing his weathered face. "Aye, lass, I've been waiting a long time for someone like you, someone who can hear the song but resist its pull. Together, we might just unravel some of these ocean mysteries." As dawn broke, dissipating the fog, Lydia and Callum began to formulate a plan. They would combine her scientific approach with his hard-earned wisdom, exploring the boundary between the known world and the unfathomable depths. Lydia knew that her journey had only just begun. The nightmare on the road had opened her eyes to a reality far stranger and more wondrous than she had ever imagined. The siren's call had nearly claimed her, but now it would guide her toward discovery. As she drove away from the coast, Callum beside her sharing tales of his maritime adventures, Lydia felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with potential wonders and dangers. But she was no longer alone on her quest. The song of the sirens still echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of the mysteries that awaited in the depths. And as the highway stretched out before her, Lydia Chen knew that her life's work had taken on a new, profound meaning. She was no longer just studying the ocean's voices. She was learning to translate a language as old as the earth itself. And somewhere, in the abyssal depths, ancient entities awaited, ready to share their secrets with those brave enough to listen.